That has enough and plenty for future generations. So do we. As an NGO, we have planted trees on more than 4,000 acres of land across India. Like you and us, thousands of Indians are doing crucial work right now. But there is an urgent need for effective climate action by 2030. And there is a lot more to be done on this lonely and difficult journey, especially in a pandemic. You may be looking for resources, support, visibility, or data. This can be overwhelming because in this next deciding decade, we need to reverse the damage of the past 3 decades. We all need a boost. Unity, community. Say Trees is proud to present India Earth Summit 10, a limited and focused annual event that will end in 2030 with clear and definitive goals for each year. It will bring together an India-wide community of thinkers, doers, and makers to showcase, learn from, support and reward the best work from around the nation. We invite participants from the government, private sector, civil society and citizens to unite at the India Earth Summit 10. You want a planet that has enough and plenty for future generations. So do we. As an NGO, we have planted trees on more than 4,000 acres of land across India. Like you and us, thousands of Indians are doing crucial work right now. But there is an urgent need for effective climate action by 2030. And there is a lot more to be done on this lonely and difficult journey, especially in a pandemic. You may be looking for resources, support, visibility, or data. This can be overwhelming because in this next deciding decade, we need to reverse the damage of the past 3 decades. We all need a boost. Unity, community. Say Trees is proud to present India Earth Summit 10, a limited and focused annual event that will end in 2030 with clear and definitive goals for each year. It will bring together an India-wide community of thinkers, doers, and makers to showcase, learn from, support and reward the best work from around the nation. We invite participants from the government, private sector, civil society and citizens to unite at the India Earth Summit.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Durgesh, and I'm the Head of Programs and Partnerships at Say Trees Environmental Trust. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome everyone to the inaugural session of the India Earth Summit 10, a Say Trees initiative. At India Earth Summit, we work in a very special space where we not only plant lakhs of trees every year, but also get to interact with many experts like many of our speakers here today. We have learned a lot in our interactions, and we thought that we should broadcast these ideas on a platform like India Earth Summit. India Earth Summit is built on a dream and an ambition that we all must come together if we need to make a significant impact by 2030. Thank you for being here. Say Trees Environmental Trust was founded in 2007 by Kapil Sharma. You will get to hear more about this at the end of today's session at the closing speech. It started with planting a few saplings in Bangalore in 2007, which has transformed into an organization operating in 9 states in India now, working across various sectors, including afforestation, water conservation, waste management, natural farming, and ecosystem restoration. India Summit 10 is a limited and focused annual conference that will end in 2030 with a clear and a definite goal each year. Now, I will take you through a video presentation which highlights the vision and goals and mission of India Summit. Please be with me.
You want a planet that has enough and plenty for future generations. So do we. As an NGO, we have planted trees on more than 4,000 acres of land across India. Like you and us, thousands of Indians are doing crucial work right now. But there is an urgent need for effective climate action by 2030. And there is a lot more to be done on this lonely and difficult journey, especially in a pandemic. You may be looking for resources, support, visibility, or data. This can be overwhelming because in this next deciding decade, we need to reverse the damage of the past 3 decades. We all need a boost, unity, community. Say Trees is proud to present India Earth Summit 10, a limited and focused annual event that will end in 2030 with clear and definitive goals for each year. It will bring together an India-wide community of thinkers, doers, and makers to showcase, learn from, support and reward the best work from around the nation. We invite participants from the government, private sector, civil society and citizens to unite at the India Earth Summit 10.
India Earth Summit is a platform designed to showcase, learn from, support and reward the most impactful and promising work in the conservation, sustainability and regenerative space. In the light of the urgent need for climate action by 2030, India Earth Summit aims to help mitigate the damage of the past 3 decades. It's an annual event that bridges the gap between stakeholders to co-create a decade-long impact-focused plan that will be revisited, tracked, and course-corrected accordingly. We envision a sustainable India built through a meaningful collaboration that offers learnings and networks via case studies and successful models for the world to emulate, working within the timeline of this decade. Recognizing the urgent need for effective climate action, India Earth Summit's mission is to bridge the gap between various stakeholders like businesses, political, academic, and citizens to define and execute a year-on-year plan from now to 2030 to help mitigate the effects of climate change. The India Earth Summit was conceptualized on the following guiding principles, which involve but are not limited to the urgent action, partnerships, course correction as we move along, transformative climate action, collaboration and transparency, shared responsibility, sustainability through regeneration, and holistic and integrated approaches to climate solutions. These are the initial founding principles on which India Earth Summit is based, and we invite our partners to fine-tune the guiding principles as we move along in this journey. For the next 10 years, the India Earth Summit will be focusing on the listed things, which include networking, policy building, interactive art, sustainable food courts, nationwide representations, vision for the future contests, industry conventions, music performances, eco-friendly merchandise, slow fashion shows, and a lot more. And we invite our partners to join us and help us plan the future of the India Earth Summit over the next 10 years. The India Earth Summit has key 4 thematic areas to focus during the next decade, which involve conservation, sustainability, science and technology, and regeneration. Now, there are various ways to join the India Earth Summit. Following are the 3 ways through which everyone can join us. One, of course, is the seed members. Seed members are the teams, the group of people or individuals who join the India Earth Summit in conceptualizing in the year-on-year basis conferences. Sharer are the people who have immense knowledge and experience who would want to come to the platform, this India Earth Summit, and share their experience and knowledge with the rest of the world. And the audience who could watch the shows, who could watch and listen to the speakers who will be joining us on different sessions throughout this year. Now, I'll highlight the agenda for the day, talks about the speakers, the topic of the speech, and the timeline. So with us, we'll have Mr. Satya Tripathi, he is our keynote speaker for the day. Mr. Brajesh Kumar is the Principal Secretary, Environment, Government of Karnataka, and also the Chairman of Karnataka State Pollution Control Board. Ms. Vani Murthy, she's from the Solid Waste Management Roundtable. Mr. Nibal Umre, he's from CGI India Global Delivery Center. We have Mr. Bhavani Prasad Deshmukh From Fidelity Investments India, we have Mr. Vijay Kumar. He's advisor to the government of Andhra Pradesh on natural farming. We have Mr. Vinod Kumar from LTI, Mr. Samir Sisodia from Rain Matter Foundation, Mr. Ilango from London Stock Exchange Group, Bangalore, Archana Jain from Dell Technologies. And we have Kapil Sharma towards the end of this session, and he'll give the closing speech after that. That's all from the presentation side. We invite you to join the countdown to 2030. Now, I would like to invite Shubhankar Paliwal to take the session forward from here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Durgesh. A very good afternoon, everyone. This is Shubhankar Paliwal. Before waiting any further, I would like to welcome our keynote speaker, Mr. Satya Tripathi. Satya S. Tripathi is Secretary General of the Global Alliance for a Sustainable Planet. He's a development economist, lawyer, and most importantly, a change maker with over 40 years of varied experience. He's also a chancellor at Kalinga Institute of Social Sciences, the world's largest academic institution dedicated exclusively to indigenous people and culture. Mr. Tripathi is also a senior distinguished fellow at Innovative Finance at the World Agroforestry Center. Sir has also served with the UN for more than 2 decades in key positions across the planet and was most recently the UN Assistant Secretary General, Head of New York Office at UN Environment, and Secretary of the UN Environment Management Group. Over to you, Mr. Tripathi. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. I'm delighted to be here today, and I want to start by thanking Kapil, Durgesh, and the team at SATRES for having taken on this most important conversation forward. We really need to know where we are and where we ought to be in 2030, and what should the journey look like, especially for India. And the Indian context is extremely important for 3 reasons. Let me start by sharing the first, which is the global climate crisis. Contrary to what we hear, the noises and, of course, the rhetoric, the reality is scary and should unsettle anybody that cares about themselves at a selfish level, but more importantly, about the planet at an enlightened level. What is happening is that there are floods everywhere. Countries that have never seen a flood in hundreds of years are seeing devastating floods. There are wildfires from the west coast of the United States to Indonesia to the bushfires in Australia. And if you look at air pollution, it's terrible to say the least. Closer home in India, we lose 1.7 million people, that's 17 lakh people every year to air pollution. And India has the unhappy distinction of having 21 of the worst 30 cities on the planet talking about air pollution. So that's the situation. And every time we start a conversation, we end up with nothing. Someone wise once said, the road to nothing is paved with great conversations. We meet, we talk, we pat each other's back, and we walk away to do nothing. And that scary reality repeats itself every few years. You know, we have a new protocol, we have a new treaty, we have a new conversation. You know, if you look at the UNFCCC, the 3 Rio Conventions, UNFCCC, the conversation started in 92 after the Rio conference. And then we have the Kyoto Protocol that didn't achieve much. And we've been talking and talking and talking for 30 years now. And we have produced precious little as results while the planet continues to melt down, the ecosystems continue to disintegrate. The UN Convention on Desertification, UNCCD, most recently we had the bomb challenge. We had hundreds of millions of hectares of degraded land to regenerate. What have we achieved? Precious little. Let's look at the UNCBD, the Convention on Biodiversity, the Nagoya Protocol and the Aichi targets that were negotiated as far as back in 2010. Nothing has been achieved. There's a recent review of the achievement of the Aichi targets, and most countries have achieved precious little. Now that is, of course, regrettable, disappointing, but more importantly, scary to the bones. And that's why India, the second thing that I wanted to talk about is why India? Why does India need to act? Now, the general argument that is made, and rightly so, is that India's total emissions are under 3 gigatons per annum, which places it at number 3 behind China and the United States. But that's, of course, that looks like a lot. But since it is anthropogenic climate change, human-induced climate change, we need to look at how many humans are in a certain country, because absolute numbers are always misleading. In terms of the per capita carbon footprint of every Indian, it's under 1.9 tons per capita. The ideal average, as most experts tell us, is between 2 to 2.1 tons per capita. That's the number that we need to be at by 2050 if we desire to stay under 2 degrees Celsius of global warming. Now, in comparison, the global average is between 4 to 5 tons per capita. The numbers move back and forth depending on annual emissions, but it's between 4 to 5 tons per capita. The US emissions, in comparison, per capita is 16 tons. So when global change makers and policymakers have a conversation with India and our leaders, it is difficult for our leaders to really say, hey, you know, I'm going to reduce further. On what basis? Because we are already below the ideal average that we all need to get to by 2050. So if we stay there, we'll be fine. Now that's good as a mitigation conversation. India has a very strong argument, and that's a case to be made every time because these are based on science and physics doesn't lie, as scientists will tell us. But the third thing is even more important. What is happening in India now, irrespective of the emissions and the mitigation conversation, is that India quickly needs to move to climate adaptation. Because when the Greenland ice sheets melt, when the Siberian permafrost melts, and you have more water in the oceans, where will that water end up? Through centrifugal forces, it will end up, of course, not all of it near the equator, but quite a bit of it. And countries by the equator and the tropics will be the worst victims of sea level rise. Last time, we were at 420 parts per million, which is the measure of carbon concentration in the atmosphere. The last time we were at 420 parts per million was at least 3 million years ago. Not yesterday, not 10,000 years ago. So what we have done to the planet in the last 100 years is extraordinary. The world has about 8 million species, and the impact of just one species, that is us, in the last 100 years has been that we have completely devastated the planet beyond any redemption. Is there hope? Yes, there is. But that hope will not be met by governments. Governments can do some little bits on policy. Corporations can, of course, behave better by not privatizing profits and putting the losses in the public domain. This whole arrangement of private profits and public losses has to go. Corporates have to understand that they are part of the same ecosystem that everyone thrives in and survives in. If the planet fails as a living, breathing planet, the corporates will not be around. They will certainly not be around if the humans are not around. Everything works in a very, very fine ecosystem that lives in balance between humans and nature. And that balance has been altered beyond redemption already. And so that is why what SATRI is doing and this particular Earth Summit, the run up to 2030, World Meteorological Organization tells us that there is 70% chance of the planet hitting 1.5 degrees of global warming at some point of time in the next 5 years, not by the turn of the century that we need to be at. And then if 1.5 degrees is going to be reached in the next 5-10 years, then we really are in a terrible place to start with. Not just we as a species, but it affects every other species. Now, the interesting fact to remember is that nature will go on. Nature will be fine. The planet will be fine. So even if we are very selfish, even if we are self-centered as human beings, we really need to wake up. We need to wake up to the reality of climate change. We need to wake up to the reality of the opportunities that confront us, because every problem presents opportunities. And those opportunities, if you capitalize on them, then we'll have a different future. We'll have a different planet. And we will have a planet that lives in harmony with nature, that looks after every species, not just the humans. And lastly, it is possible by sustainable finance, because all great ideas don't work if there are no resources to support those ideas reach fruition. And we are already seeing a lot of conversation on the demand side, conversations like the principles of responsible banking, responsible insurance, responsible investment, and most recently, the Net Zero Asset Owners Alliance. And people are already talking about trillions of dollars moving in the direction of socially responsible investment. But that revolution on the demand side, on the supply side, will be useless unless there are grassroots organizations like SATRIs and many of those that are in the conversation today that really rise to the challenge and bring their ideas to the fore and projectize them at a system scale. And that is when you will have a perfect marriage of the right kind of resources, long-term resources with low costs, with great ideas that can really save and serve the planet. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tripathi. Thank you for this insightful session. I would now like to invite Mr. Brijesh Kumar. He is Principal Secretary for Environment with the Government of Karnataka and Chairman of the Karnataka State Pollution Control. He's going to give us an insight on how governments can participate and partner in contributing to the 2050 goals, the decade of ecosystem restoration and climate action.
before I really start, I would like the viewers to appreciate that I would talk for 5-7 minutes, and I would love to have the questions, because that way you can get better out of me. Now, coming to the Sustainable Development Goals 2030 and the roles played by the governments. From government side, we have a very tricky situation. On one hand, we have to seek equitable and fair distribution of wealth and resources to all its citizens. On the other hand, we have a mighty task of conservation of terrestrial and marine ecosystems. The viewers should appreciate that from government side, this balancing between these two conflicting goals is not an easy task. Kindly appreciate that the Sustainable Development Goal, the 17 points that United Nations have listed, only 2 goals, that is 14 and 15, directly relate to the conservation of resources. Other goals, dozen odd goals, relate to the equitable distribution of energy, resources, gender equity, and a number of other different objectives, social security, water and sanitation. So when we interact with an audience which is largely concentrated, largely focused for conservation of ecosystems, I would like to draw their attention that from government side, it becomes difficult to pay attention only to the conservation aspects only. So this is a balancing task that governments have to do. Being a representative government, we cannot abandon our citizens and pay focus only for the conservation side of the goals. So one of the major tasks that we in government have to do is to strike up a balance between the economic development largely and the conservation of our ecosystems. Now, that being so, when I lay emphasis on both aspects, I do not discount the fact that the planet is facing an unprecedented crisis at this point of time in the history. For the first time ever in the history of the planet, the total mass of man-made objects has exceeded the total biomass, the mass of all living organisms existing on Earth. So now man is leaving an imprint on the planet which cannot be obliterated. This being so, the tasks played by the governments become a little more tricky and very important. Climate change again is not a fiction now. Common citizens can also have an idea that climate change is not just a terminology for the people who are in profession of science only. Every day, every year, we are facing the different side effects of climate change. In Himalayas, for example, earlier snowbound areas are having greenery now. This kind of greenery probably may not be desired. Apple as a crop is reaching ever higher altitudes where it was not grown any time in past. So climate change again is a task, is an issue which governments have to address. along with close cooperation of civil society. Now, this being so, we realize that the major role to be played in the entire crisis, I should say, is by the governments. Because major resources that are to be deployed for mitigating this crisis has to come from government. I do not undermine the role of corporate sector, but the question is that the major money has to come from government side and from taxation side only. We do not foresee any other major source of money to mitigate climate crisis. Now, Goal 14 of Sustainable Development Goals pertains to conservation of ocean, seas, and marine resources. And Goal 15 is largely addressed to protection of terrestrial ecosystems, including sustainable management of forests, sustainable conservation of biodiversity, reversing land degradation, and similar objectives. Conservation of mountain ecosystems is also a very important issue. Now, the role of civil society is also very important. What we see from the government side is that the sensitivity of the issue, if we are able to convince people at large, people who are there in different walks of professions, if we are able to convey the message to general masses, we are half done. In this important role, we realize that government cannot be omnipotent, cannot be omnipresent as well. So this is a limitation that government always faces. And here I expect that the role played by civil society should be more prominent. I am very sure that working in tandem, resources by the governments and awareness and outreach by the civil society is going to play a major role in achieving our objectives, which at the moment are targeted only for 2030. But I'm sure there is a way forward. We must look forward in future to work together. Thank you very much. I would prefer if somebody can raise some supplementary questions and we can answer them to clarify the doubts.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kumar. So we had a follow-up question on your presentation. Currently, there are a lot of bills that the government is drafting towards SDGs 14, 15, and various other SDGs as well. But on the ground level, their compliance and implementation is sometimes seemed as an issue. So what can be done about this, and how can their compliance be regulated and managed?
So when you say this, I guess you're talking of conservation of terrestrial ecosystems or maybe marine ecosystems. I can give you a perspective from India. We have 18% of world's population on an area which is 2% of the globe. So the pressure on land is enormous. I understand that the viewers may feel that not enough is being done, but kindly compare India with what is happening in Nepal or in Bangladesh or in Pakistan. If you see a satellite map of greenery, you can see Indian line by a knife edge line where the greenery ends and where Nepal starts. Same is the situation with Sri Lanka. So governments are doing their best. And especially the state forest departments, I must say, are actually bearing the brunt in India. But I also admit the fact that whatever we do shall not be sufficient. So I think I've made a point. In India, we are doing a lot, given the limitation of the resources that are placed for this task.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kumar, for this insightful session and presentation. That is all the questions that we had till now. Also, we'll be taking a short 5-minute break right now before we move on to the next segment of the show.
Thank you.
You want a planet that has enough and plenty for future generations. So do we. As an NGO, we have planted trees on more than 4,000 acres of land across India. Like you and us, thousands of Indians are doing crucial work right now. But there is an urgent need for effective climate action by 2030. And there is a lot more to be done on this lonely and difficult journey, especially in a pandemic. You may be looking for resources, support, visibility, or data. This can be overwhelming because in this next deciding decade, we need to reverse the damage of the past 3 decades. We all need a boost, unity, community. Say Trees is proud to present India Earth Summit 10, a limited and focused annual event that will end in 2030 with clear and definitive goals for each year. It will bring together an India-wide community of thinkers, doers, and makers to showcase, learn from, support, and reward the best work from around the nation. We invite participants from the government, private sector, civil society, and citizens to unite at the India Earth Summit 10. You want a planet that has enough and plenty for future generations. So do we. As an NGO, we have planted trees on more than 4,000 acres of land across India. Like you and us, thousands of Indians are doing crucial work right now. But there is an urgent need for effective climate action by 2030. And there is a lot more to be done on this lonely and difficult journey, especially in a pandemic. You may be looking for resources, support, visibility, or data. This can be overwhelming because in this next deciding decade, we need to reverse the damage of the past 3 decades. We all need a boost, unity, community. Say Trees is proud to present India Earth Summit 10, a limited and focused annual event that will end in 2030 with clear and definitive goals for each year. It will bring together an India-wide community of thinkers, doers, and makers to showcase, learn from, support, and reward the best work from around the nation. We invite participants from the government, private sector, civil society, and citizens to unite at the India Earth Summit 10.
Good afternoon to one and all. I am a homemaker and a citizen of Bangalore practicing, decentralized waste management. And we have, we feel that if we all can change the way we live, I think we can do a great deal to the planet and help reverse the climate change. So we have seen that every other species lives in harmony with nature. They all are a part of the ecosystem, but we are the only ones that do just the opposite. We put into the soil what does not belong to the soil, like plastic, styrofoam, fertilizers, pesticides, everything getting into the soil and really harming the soil. And what really belongs to the soil is sent away to the landfill. That's the organic matter. And at the landfill, it gets trapped and there is methane, the deadly greenhouse gas that gets emitted. So when I first understood this, visited a landfill, I realized that composting is such an important and integral part of the change that we need to see, because a precious resource like the organic matter, which actually would have regenerated soil, is missing from the soil. Today, agriculture has gone completely chemical, and this opposite thing happening is really hurting the soil, the life of the soil, and we need to put back where this organic matter belongs, that's in the soil. So composting has been a real experiment for me, and I just fell in love with it. And we believe that each of us, if we could just start composting, it would make a huge difference to the waste itself, because 60% of what we generate as waste is compostable, and that needs to go back to building soil. And as urbanites, we took it up. It's like as an experiment, as a fun thing to do, because we know it is a daily action that could make a huge difference. That if you could hold back these great resource and actually convert it into that black gold and feed the soil and keep the soil alive and rich, and make it a living soil, and then growing food in that soil made a huge difference. Because most of the habits we have is earth destructive, and we need to shift gears right now and make sure that each of us have this a journey to say that on a daily basis we are contributing something that makes our planet thrive, our ecosystem thrive. And there is so much of life that needs to thrive along with us, which is getting destroyed. They're getting trapped. The other species are getting trapped because the ways we live. And composting is something that can be done at every household, however small it is. It is just the process, to understand the process, and there is magic happening there. You're creating a lovely little ecosystem within your homes to make that amazing soil that feeds the plants that we can grow, and the complete cycle is happening within our homes. And it will be so great that we are not letting go of great resource and instead converting it within the spaces that we live, because we believe that decentralized waste management is so important. Segregation, and then getting people to start mindful living, all the sustainable practices that needs to happen at individual level, where each of us say that we will be less of a burden on this planet and try to contribute to get this planet going, to regenerate stuff, get more understanding, more awareness. So for me, it has been a journey of trying to share my practices, creating awareness, and also that is the education. The sharing is the awareness and education that needs to reach everybody, because in Bangalore, we generate around 5,000 to 6,000 tons of garbage every day. And when it goes in mixed form, it ends up everywhere, right? From water bodies to lakes to rivers. We don't know where it goes. It gets burnt. It also ends up in the land dumps, because they are just growing mountains of garbage, which is creating not just the methane that is getting out, because anaerobic digestion happens, because all our organic waste gets trapped there, because they keep compacting it to bring more waste and drop it onto the landfill. And this also releases leachate, which enters the groundwater. It enters the soil around, contaminating everything. So if every citizen is aware of the impact of what their waste is doing to the planet, to the ecosystem, to the environment, I think there is a big chance for everybody to start, looking at giving it a try, at least, understanding what the process is about. And this composting has been, something that I have seen that in 10 years that I've been talking nonstop about how individuals can compost, it has become kind of movement. And I belong to a team called Solid Waste Management Roundtable. And we as a team have got together. We are practicing citizens who have wanting to sensitize other citizens to start segregating at home, try to live a low waste life, be mindful of what you consume and what you discharge, find out where it is going, how it is hurting the planet, and what are the things that we could avoid, how we are moving into a path of a sustainable living where we are on a daily basis taking actions to become these practitioners that would be contributing for a better planet. And I would like to talk a little about my team, that is the Solid Waste Management Roundtable. And could you please start the slides? The second slide, please. So we are basically citizens. We are volunteering to be a part of this group where we look at everything that we have been practicing. How do we send it across the city? How do we get more and more communities to participate in something like a decentralized waste management? So this is what we did to create this, and also we work with the municipality, and so that our city has this amazing way that they are dealing with waste, because waste is such a humongous problem. And this is what we started in 2009. So we also went to the court and got it mandated through the court through a PIL. So you can see that as a strong citizen group, we have come a long way from the time that we started to where we are today. And that's been an amazing journey. And also, we had also part of us which set up the drive-waste recycling centers, the DWCC, and door-to-door collection, how we could make it a little better. Can you push the slide up, please? Yeah, thank you. And of course, it was about destination. Where does our waste go? Can we create spaces where there could be a big chance for recycling? And also to promote the inclusion of the sector that actually understands waste, the unorganized sector of waste pickers and people who manage waste, who understand waste better than any of us, and to promote recycling and getting these, this sector to be formalized and give more dignity in the way they work by just segregating our waste and giving clean waste for recycling. And also, of course, to promote composting and, getting the government to set up processing units. And of course, the biggest thing would be to get more and more companies to stop packaging, which is, non-recyclable, and, more towards getting more responsible on what they generate. Next slide, please. So we have been, a part of the facilitating this kind of models that we set up, so that people get to understand. They come and visit. There are apartment models, how you can keep, in parks we can make compost. So we get more and more people to understand by setting up models. Of course, the policy we help in trying. There are a bunch of us who sit down and help in understanding the policy and how we can strategize for a better waste management in the city itself. And of course, the biggest thing is that we design campaigns where we roll out these campaigns so that it reaches every part, and each of us are getting it across through social media, through going and do demos, having workshops and all kinds of things, so that the social behavior is changed. And of course, research is a big part of our our agenda, and we also do training programs for the municipality, for different kinds of people. We get all the trainers, so train the trainees. We have a bunch of citizens who have come in to help us do the training. Next slide, please. One of the campaigns, the first campaign that we launched was 2 bin 1 bag. That was the mandated segregation across the city at source segregation. And that led us to the next step, that the 60% of waste that comes into the green bin, what do we do with it? That is what we want to encourage people to have, composting as a big part of their daily life. So we launched a program called Swachhagraha, and there we gave a challenge to the citizens, asking them to keep away 1 week's waste. Don't send it out, but you compost it, and with a kit. How does it work? What you get to understand what composting is all about. And this was citizens took it across by doing workshops in different communities, in schools, so that more and more people understand that waste, wet waste, that is the kitchen waste and the organic waste, need not leave our home, but it can be composted in a very simple way to understand. And this Swachhagraha was taken across the city, and it actually moved away also to outside this, the state, into other cities also. So it was a very, very powerful program to get more and more people to participate in understanding that composting can be a fun activity. And then, so the 3 green spots that we encourage, that you compost your waste, then you, you grow something, and then what you eat should be safe for us to eat. So that was the campaign all about. Next slide, please. So you can see that, communities took across this. Lot of citizen volunteers came and joined us, and it was about creating this awareness through sharing. Good practices need to be shared, and it make people understand that this is something that all of us can do. Next slide, please. We had stalls, we had, training the communities. And of course, along with the municipality, also there was this, they started the composting Sante. The composting Sante was on a Sunday, 1 month, every month on a Sunday. A park was, assigned, where all the composting systems, by then, lot of, we encouraged a lot of people to start bringing in, vendors who brought in composting systems at individual level. Home composting systems, community compost systems started getting into the market, and it was showcasing. This composting Sante showcased all kinds of composting systems for walkers in the park early in the morning. And also we had workshops going there. So it was a very, very nice way to get the, the municipality along with the citizens to create this kind of awareness. And of course, one of the biggest thing that happened was setting up the Swachhagraha Kalika Kendra. Kalika Kendra is a learning center, and it was the first of its kind in India. And I don't know if it is there anywhere else in the world, which showcases every composting system, right from home composting to community composting, and a live system where the waste from the community, the HSR Citizens Forum, led by Dr. Shanti, they created this along with the MLA and the elected representative. And this part has everything that you need to learn about a sustainable waste management. It has even, a community garden where all the compost is used to grow, food. So this was showcased, and not just here. We want every municipality to have such parks everywhere. And also in Telangana, they replicated this, and Dr. Shanti was there helping them. And this was amazing because at that place in Telangana, in Siddipet, they have a full-fledged, center where everybody comes to learn, more about how to compost, the different systems, how is a low waste home like, what are the things that we can completely avoid, so that we don't generate that waste. And the last thing that really happened is communities started composting. So large communities like 100 apartments, 1,000 apartments started composting, because it was mandated by the court that every large community should start, composting inside. And then when so much compost started getting generated, they could only use a part of it for their own, landscaping, and they had a lot of excess compost. So another program that we rolled out was Swachhagraha Compost Connect. So we connected to the farmers directly, and assured them on what kind of composting systems were put up. There were no 24-hour composting machines. We would never recommend, because it doesn't really compost, it just burns waste. But then if the systems are good and approved, then we would recommend them to come and pick up the compost. So directly all the city compost was actually getting diverted to farmlands, and they were taking it and, putting it into their farm and growing the vegetables and the fruits that the city needs. So these are some of the things that, citizens as a group could do. And this is something that, Bangalore is very proud of, because there is very active citizen engagement with the authorities, and we are trying to bring that change. It's a long process. Of course, we need a lot of enforcement too, but of course, a daily action is so important to help, engage with every program that's happening around the world, to say that, we need to make sure that we all contribute to, reverse this horrible thing that's happening with the planet. And we are in jeopardy. The species that live with us are in jeopardy. As he was saying that, the planet will go on, but life will become more difficult, and we'll be facing a lot of issues that it could be if we could just thrive as a planet which has an ecosystem that is alive and kicking, instead of something that is just dying, which is not something that this planet deserves. It's a beautiful planet. We don't have planet B. And I feel so proud that I have this opportunity as a homemaker, to help more and more people to understand. I use social media, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube to spread the word. And nothing gives me more happiness than people giving feedback that they started composting in their home, and the issues that they had around it, and how they overcame that. So it's all an experiential learning. And I feel if each of us took responsibility of the waste we generated, this world would be a beautiful place, and all of us we would definitely be contributing to a better planet. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Murthy. We had a follow-up question on your presentation about how individuals can start practicing composting at home, and how they can actually convert that into a habit.
Yeah. It's composting. It can be the most sustainable practice that we could ever take, because it is one action, like brushing your teeth. Once you understand the process, it's like a daily action. You just take your kitchen waste, and even if you have a small balcony, you just have to understand there is a process. And it's okay if it doesn't come immediately, if you don't get a hang of it. It is an experiential learning, and it is just about your kitchen waste. It's about the dry browns, it's about the micros, and it's about the magic that is happening, that breaks down this organic matter into this beautiful compost, sweet smelling compost that just makes the soil so alive. And that's where our food should be grown. So understanding composting, actually making compost, could actually lead you to make choices about the food that you eat. And if all of us start looking at farmers who have natural methods of farming, then I think we will just encourage more regeneration, because organic matter is going back to soil, and farmers are using traditional practices which has been handed over by generations to grow food. And I think our soil will be much more healthier. It will hold water. There will be no runoff of nutrients. There'll be less chemicals that's getting into our water system. So I think overall, just learning composting could lead you to a path of understanding what food is all about, and then you make choices about food.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Murthy, for this insightful presentation and answering the question.
Thank you.
Moving on to our next speaker, Mr. Nirbhay Lumde. Mr. Nirbhay is a seasoned CSR professional with over 2 decades of experience and hands-on impactful social engagements with corporates, nonprofits, and governments in striving to achieve the SDGs, developing strategy and building systems for driving change, and also corporate social responsibility initiatives. Mr. Lumde will be talking about the CSR goals for 2030 and their importance. Over to you, Mr. Lumde.
Good afternoon, good evening, those of you who are joining. It's indeed pleasure to be talking here more around how do we see corporate social responsibility 2030. Even prior to going to the 2030, I thought it was wonderful to hear to the previous speaker about where we stand in terms of irreversible future, irreversible past. I think it's very, very important for us to realize that we only have one life, one planet, and a future generation that's looking after us for the more direction and being more conscious of our own efforts and our support mechanism to ensure that we keep things intact. While I speak about 2030, this corporate social responsibility, it's very, very important to understand the CSR, or the corporate social responsibility, is a minuscule of what we speak about the social sustainable development goals. When we look at the sustainable development goals itself from a larger picture point of view, it's very, very important for us to visualize that we are part of a larger ecosystem and we have our own responsibilities, be it as individual or be it as a corporate entity or as a private entity or a public entity. We have our roles to play and we have the role that is more sustainable, ensuring that our future generation are happy about what we are giving them. When we speak about sustainable development goals, more so moving from 2020 to 2030, it's very important to understand that these are not single out issues or projects. We have to think sustainable development goals more holistic, need to see the intertwined each of those problems, also need to figure it out how these are connected and how these are collectively impact our future. When we look at CSR 2020 to 2030, we need to figure it out what is the wicked problem that we are going to solve together. We need to have a system thinking culture so that all of us are collectively fighting and addressing a global challenge where we do not have a choice. We do not have a choice to reverse. We only have a choice to make amends right now, here, and then move on. When we look at some of these issues around corporate social responsibility, it's very, very important to understand that we cannot look at CSR the way we are looking right now. We need to see corporate social responsibility more holistic. We need to build mental models that are close to real world challenges and problems. We need to ensure that these mental models are collectively accepted and collectively are fighting together to address those. It's also important to know that, as I've been saying a couple of times, as I already said, that we are in reversible mode. We do not have a choice to come back. It's only that we have to make an amendment in the future. So it's very, very important for all of us in this space to understand the theory of change. What is the theory of change that we are all looking at? What is that we are wanting to make a change from point A to point B? Are we looking at a smaller segment of change that we need to make it happen? Are we looking at a dent that we want to make it? Or are we looking at a transformative approach where we collectively make things happen? It's very, very important that we need to look at what the breadth versus the depth. It's equally important to have the breadth. The large scale outreach kind of initiatives are very, very important. But it's also important to understand that we need to have the depth. We need to understand what is it we are collectively trying to strive. What are we trying to address it collectively? The minute we have those lessons learned, I think scaling up, building collaboration opportunities are as many. It's all about having that open door policies and having inclined to each other, aligned to each other's goals, having sustainable development goals more of guidelines for us and work towards it. It's also important when you look at 2030 that we cannot anymore look at the CSR as a project mode. It has to have a programmatic approach. We cannot look year on year. It has to be a decadal approach that we need to see it. Look a little more holistic. How many partnerships that we can build? How many different heterogeneous groups that we can bring it together and work closely? It's not just about having the not-for-profits and NGOs working in the grassroots, but equally important for the corporate to understand how profits are made. Profits also proportional to the society that we are part of it. Unless the society at peace, unless the community where we live is at ease, we will not make any profits. Even if we are able to make profits, we will not able to reinvest them. So it's very, very important for us to understand the larger picture and move ahead. I keep talking in the recent part, I've been talking about something called creating shared value. It's very, very important for us to create shared value from CSR, from the corporate social responsibility. The reason being that creating a shared value has value, not just for the community that you're addressing a social challenge, but equally important for the corporate to have a solution that's more sustainable. We cannot look year by year on year for funding. Somewhere we need to build solutions that are long-term, sustainable, and scalable. Unless we create shared value, unless we have this strategic goal that is in mind, as previous speaker spoke about it, it's not only about having the larger intent, but also having the individually taking that responsibility. Me as an individual citizen, as well as we as an entity, private, public, as NGOs, have to come together and create shared value. The creating shared value is multifold. It's not about, I'm not talking about something on the economical, but it's all about owning up those responsibilities to address a larger problem. We also need to have an approach on systems thinking. It's more transformative approach that we need to have. We need to understand what are the boundaries that we are trying to achieve or we are trying to target. We need to be collectively looking at what are those bare minimum things that we can achieve together. What are those things that we can collectively address? Can we have involve others who are expert in this field and address those challenges? Bring in as many people, as many agencies, as many entities, collectively fight together. It's also important that we need to also bring in the naysayers who do not believe that 2030 looks very, very far away. I think it's too late for us to think about 2030. 2030 is right here. The kind of calamities that we are seeing in the recent past are giving us a hint. They already gave a hint to us. It's about creating the shared value, coming together and having the systematic approach, or maybe all of us use very loosely called transformative approach. Let's come together, look at the problem more holistically. It's not so much about the funding, it's not so much of the dollar value that we have to bring in, it's more about the value addition that we are collectively bringing to address the challenge. The second, when you look at the solution, are we looking at a solution that's short term? Are we looking at a solution that's from an intermediary? Or are we looking at a long-term solution? Are we looking at piecemeal approach of solution to versus solution? Are we looking at systematic transformation so that such problems do not even arise at all? We collectively build a cohesive system in place based on the largest sustainable development goals. It gives that impetus for us to collectively fight together and address it. It's also equally important when we look at the CSR, it has to have a business proposition. It has to have a larger goal. As most of you know that most of the private players have signed up for the net neutral by 2030. It's very important that we have a target 2030 being net neutral, but it's equally important if it is 2030, we should have the milestone achieved by 2025 itself. Next 3 years are going to be extremely critical, and we have to address come what may. 2025 going to be critical for us. That's a juncture. We have to address it come what may. Look at the larger picture. Have resources, maybe 2x, 3x of the capacity, and go full scale. There is no reverse that we can have. It's only futuristic. Let's join together. Let's look at more holistic approach towards addressing the sustainable development goals. That's the way I see it, the 2030, more futuristic, more positive, more energetic, and more positive. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for providing us with an holistic idea of approaching the SDGs and the importance of CSRs in aiding us achieving those goals. Without any further delay, I would like to move on to the next speaker and welcome Mr. Bhavani Prasad Deshmukh, Head of Regional Public Affairs and Community Relations, Fidelity Investments India. Mr. Prasad will cover the sustainability journey of Fidelity and their association with Saintries.
It is a pleasure to be participating at this at Summit 10. Um, for those who are new to Fidelity's name, we are a 75-year-old US-based financial services privately held company. In India, we are based out of Bangalore and Chennai with a strength of about 7,000 associates. We also have our sister companies, Fidelity International, Gold, 8 Road Ventures, etc., operating out of different cities in India. As I said, Fidelity has been a 75-year-old company. It has always been very conscious of environment and sustainability even before the term ESG was coined in 2005. Fidelity's sustainability journey, although it was not formally called a sustainability journey, it actually started in 1980s itself. Also now, being fund managers, investing in environmentally responsible companies has also become a business imperative for us now. From that perspective, we have a formal sustainability office and a structured ESG governance framework that helps us with strategy and progress monitoring. We have also tracked our sustainability numbers since 2007 itself. Now I would like to start presenting my slides. Can I have them, please? Thank you. While we work on many fronts of sustainability as an enterprise, we focus on these 5 that I've listed down on this particular slide. Energy efficiency comes first. Any company which run huge data centers know how important this is. In fact, to take a decision on where to locate a data center, electricity tariffs, how easily it is available, becomes a major criteria. So the second focus area we have is on waste and water management. Third one is carbon emissions. The fourth, climate resilience. As few speakers have spoken about, we have already started seeing extreme weather patterns right now. So it needs to be addressed. And then also ecosystem health. These are our four focus areas. And some of the things that we have done in these particular areas, I will talk about. Just to give a few examples at our enterprise or the US level, in our large forest-like campuses in Northeast US, we have water bodies that we protect and conserve. We also have large organic farms within our campuses, which provide organic vegetables to our kitchens on site. And we also donate the same to local food banks. And then we have also started meeting considerable amount of our electricity demand for our data centers through on-site solar farms. I will move to my next slide, so you will be able to see some of the examples here. The right and left corner on the top, you see organic farms on campus and then solar farms. While these are from the US, in India also we have focused a lot on sustainability through our continuous efforts on many fronts. Some of them are energy efficient lighting. I'm sure most of the companies are doing this. The second is a differentiator for us. It is about good usage of electric vehicles for our employee transport. Our employees also greatly appreciate this. We have created all the required infrastructure that is required for managing such a fleet of vehicles. Also, we have worked on reduced water usage in washrooms, cafeteria, and then also in an IT company like ours, printing, paper consumption becomes huge. So print paper reduction using a technology called tap to print is a method that we use to eliminate printouts that are not required or not collected. And then also reduction of plastic usage. The other thing that we have tried out is what is called as centralized waste collection on each floor. Invariably, we would have a dustbin at every associate's desk. About a year and a half ago, we removed all of it and centralized it in 3 or 4 corners of the floor. Surprisingly, this reduced the amount of waste generation that was actually happening. These are only few of the examples that I can talk about. There are many more. So now I would like to talk about our engagement with Trees. We have been working with Trees since 2018 on creating urban forests. Through Trees, our associates have volunteered and planted over 60,000 saplings across Bangalore and Chennai, which is helping in our own way to restore the green cover back to the cities that we live in. Our associates also feel so proud to see that the saplings that they have planted just 2 years ago have grown into full trees and are a part of the set of urban forests that we are trying to create. We have worked with Trees on many such projects, both in Bangalore and Chennai. This is such a fulfilling experience for us, to be very frank with you. In the pictures that you see on the bottom left, you see our associates planting trees, rather the saplings, in December 2018. And then you can also see 2 years since then, how the trees have grown. So it actually gives us a sense of achievement. Another thing that we have realized as a company is it is not just enough as a company to focus on environment or sustainability. It is very important to involve the employees who can contribute in many ways. On this front, we have a special interest group called Impact, which has a large number of associates as members who are very actively innovating and contributing to the cause. In fact, our associates come up with great ideas, which we take up as active projects, pilot them, and implement them. I would like to move to the next slide, where we talk about what we have achieved in the last several years. As I said in the beginning, we have been focusing on sustainability numbers since 2007 itself. And over so many years, while our businesses have grown multifold, our real estate footprint has not increased. It has remained the same. And then if you look at the numbers, we have bettered them by more than 50% till now. And then we also have aggressive goals till 2025 as well as 2030. Of course, last 1.5 years have been challenging. We will have to make up for what we have lost there. And then lastly, as a Bangalorean, I have seen the development and progress of Bangalore. At the same time, seen the destruction of Garden City, which was always naturally air conditioned. I still can connect with Vani Madam when she was talking about the garbage problem or the waste problem in Bangalore. Today, Bangalore is infamously vying for a garbage city tag. Hope we don't go that way. While it is important to have development and progress, it is very, very critical to balance the effects on environment at the same time. This is a clear lesson that Bangalore actually has given to all of us. With this, I end my presentation. It has been a pleasure talking here.
Thank you so much, Mr. Deshmukh, for the presentation and showing the great progress that Fidelity has made towards making themselves more sustainable through their efforts, not only in their offices, but also through your association with Saintries. Before, before we move on to our next speaker, Mr. Vijay Kumar, let me just give a brief idea about him. He's a retired IAS officer and currently the Executive Vice Chairman of Raitu Sadhikara Samstha, a government corporation for farmers' empowerment, and an ex-officio Special Chief Secretary to Agriculture and Cooperation Department, Government of Andhra Pradesh. The key areas that he'll be talking about includes how can farming in harmony with nature help in promoting livelihoods of farmers, food and nutrition security, and in conservation and restoration of degraded croplands. Over to you, Mr. Vijay Kumar.
Good afternoon. I'm very happy to be here for the India Earth Summit organized by Saintries. My congratulations to them. I'm also very inspired by our keynote speaker, Satya Tripathi's beginning talk, where he has really set the whole agenda so clearly in front of us. What I'll be explaining is what we are doing in Andhra Pradesh, involving a large number of farmers. And the video that you're going to see is one of those examples of how degraded lands can be greened through the natural farming practices. I'll play a video now which really summarizes some of the key points of our work.
కానీ అది అట్లే వస్తుంది సార్ జీవామృతం స్ప్రే చేయడం వల్ల. వర్షం కూడా లేకపోయినా ఈ మల్చింగ్ ద్వారా అది అప్పుడు ఎప్పుడు పచ్చగానే ఉంటుంది, కాయ పూత ఎప్పుడు జరుగుతూనే ఉంది సార్. మాకు 25 రకాలు రోజు కోయడం రోజు అమ్మడం జరుగుతుంది సార్, రోజు డబ్బులు రావడమే జరుగుతుంది. అందువలన ఈ 50 సెంట్లు 60
You will appreciate that was in a rain-fed area where with very little rainfall, you can see Pushpavati's field is lush green and it's not been irrigated, and she has taken crops throughout the year. And that is a miracle that can happen when you farm in harmony with nature. Now I'll move on to my presentation. So Andhra Pradesh, as mentioned in the video, plans to take natural farming to all the farmers and farm workers in the state. And we have set ourselves next 10 years to achieve this objective. And as speakers have said, we have multiple crises: farmers' distress, consumer food plate itself, both food scarcity, chemical residues, not having enough nutrients. But more important is the environmental crisis with soil degradation, water stress, global warming, and other multiple factors. But all of them are interrelated, and the way we have been doing land management, the way we have been practicing agriculture itself is one of the biggest contributors. So you have a very ironical situation where our food system is affected by climate change, and our food system is causing climate change. So the solution has to be in reforming our the way we grow food, and can land management be the solution to climate change? And it can solve all the problems: farmers' livelihoods, good health, and also climate health. So in Andhra Pradesh, we are practicing natural farming. It's a holistic land management practice that leverages the power of photosynthesis in plants to close the carbon cycle and build soil health, crop resilience, and nutrient density. This is precisely the way Mother Nature has built our soils over millions of years. So we are only mimicking what Mother Nature has been doing. So the principles, as explained in the video, are very simple. We need to have the soil covered with crops 365 days of the year. The living root principle: these should be diverse crops. It's preferable to have trees incorporated in each farm plot. The soil should not be disturbed. Integrating animals into farming. Biostimulants, as you saw in the film, made out of cow dung, jaggery, cow urine, handful of soil. So these are necessary catalysts, they are not fertilizers. And then increasing the crop residues on the soil. Use of indigenous seed is preferred, and pest management through better agronomic practices, including botanical extracts. And the only red box you see here is no to synthetic fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, and weedicides. So how does it work? And also, please see, the challenge is to take it to every farmer. So we have in Andhra Pradesh around 80 lakh farmers and farm workers. We are also targeting the landless uh, uh, farm families as our target group. So one is how do these principles work on ground? One is we motivate farmers to raise multiple crops throughout the year. This is extremely important to ensure soil fertility is restored. So you can see this, it's become a growing habit. Then seed coating with Bijamrita. Then this is Ghana Jivamrita, which is a soil microbial enhancement. This is a solid form. And we also have a liquid Drava Jivamrita, which is sprayed every 1 week, 10 days, or 15 days. And the communities are trained, farmers, particularly women farmers, are trained in making these inputs. And this is the pest management practices without using chemicals, and this use of indigenous seeds. So where are we now? We have an ambitious target. So in 2020-21, we had reached out to 750,000 farmers and farm workers. We have a footprint in 28% villages of the state, and 10% farmers and farm workers are part of the group. They are in transition. And source of funds, state government has committed up to 1,800 odd crores up to 2024. We are supported by Azim Premji Philanthropy. They have provided up to 100 crores up to 2022. So this is a largely government-funded program, and it's being taken to the people. What are the impacts of this? Because we are in the 6th year, 5 years have passed. So we do independent crop cutting experiments, and all the results of the past years have shown that farmers' livelihoods are improved by reduction of costs. The yield differences are not significant, they are the same. So there's no decline. In fact, the yields start increasing after a year or two, and thereby there's a significant increase in net income. But more important is better soil health. The crop diversity leads to better food and nutrition diversity, better resilience. Then this is what you saw in the video, how we can recreate a oasis in the middle of a desert. These are absolutely degraded lands brought to life in the very first year. And this will be followed by planting trees in this landscape. And our idea is that even in rain-fed, semi-arid areas, farmers should earn around 1 lakh rupee per acre per annum. So we are looking at livelihoods, we are looking at good health, and most important is climate resilience and reversing climate change. Now, how is it being implemented on ground? It is through the network of the women self-help groups. They are present in every village in the state. More than 90% women in rural areas are organized into the self-help groups. So these women are basically the core strength of our program. Then we also have training given by fellow farmers. So farmer to farmer knowledge dissemination, expert farmers, experienced farmers provide training to others. So we have 6,000 such community resource persons. And we use ICT for tracking what we are doing and also for video dissemination. And this is very important that, we need time. We think it takes about 5 to 8 years for a village to completely transform into a natural farming village or a bio village. At the same time, each farmer takes time, 3 to 5 years, because we are not providing any financial incentives to farmers for changing. They are gaining because they're reducing costs and increasing returns. So this is where we get the support of NGOs and the community-based organizations and RYSS itself invests in this, spending quality time in each village to bring this transformation. And we have, partnerships with UN Environment, FAO, various global agencies, and we are having partnership with SATREES, and many states are now looking to us for support, and also other countries. So this is what is important, is that the message should reach out to every citizen, that each one can play a role in combating climate change. It's not just the work of governments or NGOs. Every citizen has a role, every farmer has a role. So it's through partnerships, it is through enlightened partnerships that these things can happen. And the next 10 years are going to be very critical, because the window of change also can close if we don't take adequate action. So I'll stop sharing the screen, and I'll conclude my talk here by congratulating SATREES once again, and also emphasizing that it's very critical that we make best use of the next 10 to 15 years. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vijay Kumar. We had a follow-up question on your presentation about how can natural farming helping achieving the food security goals at the global level.
Yeah, as I mentioned, natural farming is enabling production of more food which is safe, and food which is more nutritious. Now, worldwide, the cropping intensity is only 1.15. That means typically the crops are grown only for one season. Now, through natural farming, as you saw both in the video and in my presentation, we can take the cropping intensity to 2 or even 3. The farmer in the video, actually, she has taken 3 crops in a rain-fed land. So there's a tremendous potential of taking more crops from each unit of land, and thereby more than achieve not only food security but nutrition security, because the food produced through natural farming has more micronutrients, trace minerals, which are very important for our health. The food that we are eating today is very deficient in micronutrients. So that also impacts on our immunity. So therefore, not only more food, but good food. And food is perhaps the first medicine. So we have to really thank these farmers for practicing natural farming, who are giving us food which is healthy. So absolutely, natural farming is perhaps the only way by which we can attain food security and nutrition security in the whole world.
Thank you so much once again, Mr. Vijay Kumar, for giving us an idea about not only the importance, but also the benefits of natural farming. Over here, before moving on to the next segment, we'll be taking a short 5-minute break. Thank you.
You want a planet that has enough and plenty for future generations. So do we. As an NGO, we have planted trees on more than 4,000 acres of land across India. Like you and us, thousands of Indians are doing crucial work right now. But there is an urgent need for effective climate action by 2030. And there is a lot more to be done on this lonely and difficult journey, especially in a pandemic. You may be looking for resources, support, visibility, or data. This can be overwhelming because in this next deciding decade, we need to reverse the damage of the past 3 decades. We all need a boost, unity, community. SATREES is proud to present India Earth Summit 10, a limited and focused annual event that will end in 2030 with clear and definitive goals for each year. It will bring together an India-wide community of thinkers, doers, and makers to showcase, learn from, support, and reward the best work from around the nation. We invite participants from the government, private sector, civil society, and citizens to unite at the India Earth Summit 10. You want a planet that has enough and plenty for future generations. So do we. As an NGO, we have planted trees on more than 4,000 acres of land across India. Like you and us, thousands of Indians are doing crucial work right now. But there is an urgent need for effective climate action by 2030. And there is a lot more to be done on this lonely and difficult journey, especially in a pandemic. You may be looking for resources, support, visibility, or data. This can be overwhelming because in this next deciding decade, we need to reverse the damage of the past 3 decades. We all need a boost, unity, community. Say Trees is proud to present India Earth Summit 10, a limited and focused annual event that will end in 2030 with clear and definitive goals for each year. It will bring together an India-wide community of thinkers, doers, and makers to showcase, learn from, support, and reward the best work from around the nation. We invite participants from the government, private sector, civil society, and citizens to unite at the India Earth Summit 10. You want a planet that has enough and plenty for future generations. So do we. As an NGO, we have planted trees on more than 4,000 acres of land across India. Like you and us, thousands of Indians are doing crucial work right now. But there is an urgent need for effective climate action by 2030. And there is a lot more to be done on this lonely and difficult journey, especially in a pandemic. You may be looking for resources, support, visibility, or data. This can be overwhelming because in this next deciding decade, we need to reverse the damage of the past 3 decades. We all need a boost, unity, community. Say Trees is proud to present India Earth Summit 10, a limited and focused annual event that will end in 2030 with clear and definitive goals for each year. It will bring together an India-wide community of thinkers, doers, and makers to showcase, learn from, support, and reward the best work from around the nation. We invite participants from the government, private sector, civil society, and citizens to unite at the India Earth Summit 10.
I would like to welcome everyone back to IES 10. Our next guest, Mr. Vinod Kumar, is a Senior Program Manager for CSR and Sustainability at LTI. He works to advance the company's core commitment to solve for society through impactful programs in education, empowerment, and environment. He manages the global CSR programs and volunteering programs. The 3 key areas that he'll be covering in today's session include: what is the vision and way of working in addressing issues related to climate change? What are the strategies adopted by LTI to work towards climate action? And why is it important to work towards that goal? Over to you, Mr. Kumar.
So good evening all. So it's glad and happy to be part of the India Earth Summit, and I really kind of thank Kapil, Durgesh, and the entire SATREES team for organizing such a wonderful event. So this is most important as most of the companies have planned their the carbon neutral and the sustainability goals for the next 10 years. So with that, I just want to start with some of the commitments what LTI has been looking for, where LTI is working with all the stakeholders in solving the key development issues in the field of education, empowerment, and environment. So the approach that we have is directed at achieving our United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and building more resilient world by the year 2030. The way how LTI is committed to fight the climate action is we have a sustainability roadmap for 2030 set for our social and environment aspect. LTI has been committed in becoming carbon neutral for our India operations and our initiatives to become carbon neutral by 2030. Some of the initiatives that I would like to share here is reduction in our energy consumption and optimizing the electrical applications, increasing the renewable share. So this has been a key component that the company has been working with. Another point that I would want to say is a reduction in the travel emissions that we have and complying to our Green Week. So since 2017, we have a Green Week where we strictly enforce that, people only travel only if it is more towards the client meetings as such. Similarly, we have been using virtual conferences, optimizing more in terms of direct flights. So whenever that our employees do or the leadership team travel, so we ensure that they travel on a direct flights, increasing their trust on over the CNG and EVs, promoting more of electric vehicles. Our carbon sink has been increasing through our CSR initiatives because that's the only way that we can mitigate through our tree plantation and installation of solar in our rural programs, which also serves a twofold objective. One is you're also trying to increase the green car cover. Also, we are also doing the carbon sequestration program. In fact, I would just want to kind of highlight some of the figures in terms of the emission and the plantation that we have done, which is also available in our integrated annual report. So we have a natural capital with 4,116 TCOT emission that we have avoided. We have had a kind of over a lakh kilowatts of electricity that has been saved, and close to 10 million liters water that's been recycled in houses. Some of the highlights for our FY21, even though this has been an unusual year for almost all of us, because none of us thought this last 18 months in this pandemic things would change. We are trying to minimize our environment footprints by undertaking initiatives around the climate resilience, as well as ensuring efficient usage and conservation of resources, which are focused around energy, water, and waste management. That also includes the carbon neutrality and our diversity protection. Some of the key highlights for FY21 is that we have a renewable energy share, which is increased to 26.4, wherein our target that we had set for 2030 was 50% renewable energy. Our energy conservation initiatives, which are more in terms of optimizing the heat, ventilation, air conditions, which are the HVAC systems, UPS systems, replacement of conventional lighting systems along the company, low occupancy due to this pandemic has really reduced the energy consumption to 63% compared to business as usual. So though a lot of people had conversations that why do we not revisit the target set for 2030, but we did not want to do that because these are unusual years, the last 2 years. So we just thought, let's kind of reduce it, optimizing every year. So there is a year-on-year progress that we do keep. And our 2030 plan was kind of drawn much before the pandemic. So in 2018 itself, we did draw our plan, what has to be for the company for the next 12 years. So 70% of our India operations, which are more in terms of green building. So we have got this green building certification for most of our campuses that we have done. 2 of our campuses in India, that's the Bangalore and the Mumbai campuses, are completely solar installed campuses. So which has more close to 100 kV of electricity that has been consumed. We have been increasing our carbon sink through our CSR initiatives by tree plantation. So over the years, we have planted close to 3.5 lakh trees, and along with say trees, we have done close to 1.5 lakh, and this year we are committed to another lakh trees to be planted, both with the Biyawaki plantation as well as the the rural tree plantation. Interesting fact is we've been also working with the farmers in the North Karnataka region, where over 2,000 acres of land has been irrigated through our water conservation program of our CSR initiative, of which close to 54 lakh liters of rainwater was harvested. What does 2030 mean to LTI is more in terms of contributing towards our national goals as a responsible corporate and drawing inspirations from intended national determined contribution. And most of our programs are already aligned within the company with UN SDGs. So LTI, as I said, has been committed to become carbon neutral for our India operations. And all our programs, not only the CSR programs, most of the programs that we do in the company are aligned to the UN SDGs. We are trying to reduce the travel emission to strive and comply for the Green Weeks that has been initiated in 2017. Use of virtual platforms, increasing more in terms of trusted compressed natural gases, CNG, and electric vehicles for our employee commute. while sustainability framework that we have is basic terms, we follow our sustainability performances more in terms of directions and objective. We do have a specific objective in terms of commitment that we have given to ourselves for our sustainability roadmap. These commitments are not only just the business centric, but also people and environment centric as well. It's our firm belief that achieving these objectives will enhance our contribution to achieve the SDGs. And the message that we would want to give from LTI is combating the climate change is not only to achieve the commitments and goals what we have for LTI, but also it's an action aligned to our business goals. So we do align most of our CSR programs and sustainable programs along with the business. And our business is linked with the 10 principles of UNGC, the United Nations Global Compact. So we do want to keep up a promise that LTI will keep innovating, leveraging opportunities to serve our stakeholders and to continue solving for a resilient future. I'm open for any questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vinod Kumar. Currently, we don't have any questions, but I would still like to thank you for your words and about the work LTI has done in making themselves more sustainable. Also, I would like to move on to the next speaker now. Our next speaker is Mr. Sameer Sisodia. Mr. Sisodia heads the Rain Matter Foundation, developing projects and building funding and investment programs, among many other things. He left his long career in tech industry a decade ago and partly moved to Kurg to experiment with sustainable farming, farm collectives, and his personal passion, rejuvenating soil and forest. He will give us an insight about capacity building and team building for climate action and how to empower teams to fund and support. Over to you, Mr. Sisodia.
Hey, good evening, everybody. I am Sameer from Rain Matter Foundation, and we are a foundation that started late last year, and we focused on solving problems related to climate change, ecological degradation, and so on. So as we started to understand this better and talk to a lot of people about the efforts, the problems, the complexities of the space, we realized that we had taken a really, really large problem, and we did not want to just limit the approach to the two numbers of carbon sequestration and temperature, because those are both very downstream solutions, and we wanted to fix it in holistic upstream ways, nearer to the root causes. So we very quickly realized that a lot of efforts have been on in a lot of different directions, from conservation to agricultural interventions to technological solutions to fix temperature, to sequester carbon. But what we also realized is, despite all of these efforts, it's been a losing battle. Where we are today is still the result of how we live, how we function, how our economy is. Despite decades of efforts in the opposite direction, it's not really added up to reversing that. Right, we are still losing this battle on a daily basis. Our books don't tally well, and at the end of the day, there's still a big red line. We've been through multiple summits. We've been through governments, organizations, individuals committing to trying to drive change at their own levels. But we haven't really started to solve the problem in a big way. So the question to us was, do we need a new thing, or do we need to relook at the problem and see how this can move ahead faster? So some of what I'm going to talk about with respect to how do you create a team is coming from how we creating our own team, right? How we encouraging our partners and our grantees and our investees to look at this problem, because how we look at the problem then decides how our teams are built, what skills we chase, and what capacities we build out there. So one of the early things we realized was, there's a lot of problem solving in silos. The forest department itself says that afforestation and forest conservation was happening almost in a fortress mode, right? So depending on who you ask, and we tend to go with this number, forest cover in India is between 5 and 20%. The core forest cover is really 5% with some buffers. Now, it's not enough to look at forests that lie within this, for instance. It's not enough to focus our conservation efforts only inside the forest or at the edge of the forests. Because then you have this dichotomy of us being able to completely ignore the same principles, completely ignore the need to regenerate our ecological systems, our natural systems in 95% of the land, and that's dangerous. And that's what we've really been doing. We've been drawing little lines around our conservation efforts, our regeneration efforts. In fact, all problem solving, and we've been leaving the rest alone. We've been almost buying our way out of making real change, right? And we need to address this problem in a large way. So this applies to all problem solving. I gave the example of forests because SaTrees actually is working in the remaining 95% space, right? From urban forestry to now going for agroforestry, the livelihood linkages and so on and so forth. So we are very excited to actually go down this path much deeper. So we also asked us the question, why is this important? You've all heard the quip that you don't need to do much. The planet will take care of itself. Long after the Homo sapiens is gone, the planet will be flourishing. It'll have rebuilt a lot of the ecosystems that we've actually actively helped destroy. It'll have actually regenerated a lot of life inducing mechanisms that have been in motion for millennia now. So, but our interest really is very selfish. We are trying to keep this planet livable for ourselves, right? And only now, recently, we have been, despite our huge amount of knowledge and information, we have only recently started to gain the insight that our benefit and our future isn't the future of a lot of other systems and a lot of other things on the planet. Right? I don't think it's still internalized, but at its core, human benefit, our economic benefit, and the benefit of all these systems on the planet are very, very closely linked. They are not disparate things, right? I think Vijay sir initially pointed out that the government is walking a tough tightrope on trying to address developmental needs on one end and climate and regeneration needs on the other. But I do believe that we have to find a way where these are one and the same thing, that these are not acting against each other, because we don't have a future in that approach at all. So we're trying to make a planet a better place to live in. But what is the planet? It's every city, it's every town, it's every forest, it's every hill station that you go to, it's every lake, it's every river, it's every piece that you enjoy and use for various needs that you interact with. Now, unless all of this is healthy, and what do we mean by healthy? It has to be healthy for. So these are the 4 pillars we kind of arrived at from an ecological sense. That's the foundational thing. I mean, if you take out water out of Bangalore, Bangalore is not going to write code. if Delhi's air gets any worse, there are already a lot of people fleeing the city. If the coastline starts to see continuous assault from sea levels rising, from cyclones and so on and so forth, people will flee inland, right? So the ecology is like a basic foundational layer without which everything else ceases to exist, right? We will not be having this discussion around the balance between the economy and ecology if the huge scale of disasters that we are already seeing scales even by a factor of 3 in the coming years, and it's a very, very likely scenario right now. Apart from that, you have human services, you have the economic engine and all our livelihoods and goals linked to it, and you have this thing around pride, culture, or rootedness to a place, right? So we believe now that you need a decent amount of, you need a hygiene level of health in all of these, across all of these, for a place to be livable. And why should not every square kilometer of our country and our planet be livable in every sense of the word, right? If you take out any one of these, you start to create problems. And for too long a time, we have focused very, very hard on the economy, to a decent extent on human services, but completely at the cost of the ecology. And I think that's problematic. So what we are trying to do is, there are enough solutions out there. There are lots of people working on individual bits, but we are trying to see if we can take a multidimensional approach to problem solving, if we can drive that. Can people start to account for the ecology if they're solving healthcare? Can they account for livelihoods if they're solving, the needs of wildlife, and so on and so forth? So do not solve for just one thing, but please account for all of these focus areas, at least a few of them, as far as possible, because then you start to create something that will that is holistic, that is likely to sustain, that's a solution that will actually integrate well with the place, with the people there, and so on and so forth. So this is something we are driving in all the partners we are working with. In fact, we are trying to partner with people who are not necessarily working on sustainability and climate as a problem space, but solving anything accounting for the ecology. That's our real message. Whether you are an NGO, whether you're a private organization, supply chain company, or the government, you need to account for the ecology, and that's the real push that we're trying to make here. Another foundational principle that we've arrived at through dialogue and learning is that these efforts need to be community-led, right? So Vijay sir was describing the experiment in Andhra, and I'm a personal believer and practitioner of natural farming and permaculture, and I believe that this is indeed a very, very, very big part of the solution, and this is something we need to popularize across the country for sure, and across the world. What we need to now do is, how do these things get adopted by the community themselves? How do they find a home in the community? How are the solutions actually led by the community? And as governments, as philanthropic organizations, as NGOs, problem solvers, we have to see ourselves as enablers versus the actual problem solvers. We have to bring tools, we have to bring know-how, but actually let the solutions emerge ground up. So this is something we are again pushing for very, very hard. And of course, this will not happen if we all work in silos. There are hundreds of great examples out there. So through data sharing, through sharing of platforms, sharing of, partnering with people who solve a particular part of the puzzle, collaboration has to increase multifold in the space. Otherwise, like somebody described, India is a graveyard of pilots. And that's something we want to completely avoid. We don't want to create 100 more pilots, that go nowhere. It has to become part of the mainstream. Coming to the mainstream, I think messaging is a very big part of it, because if only 2% or 3% Indians actually worry about these problems, I don't think we're going to make headway. Unless out of 130 crore people, 140 crore people, unless 70, 80 crore people believe that their future is aligned to better ecological, health, better ecosystems, better commons, I don't think we're going to make progress. So there's a big portion where we need to translate the language that we use, the things that matter to us. Speaking about SDG to somebody who has uh, uh, a massive economic hit because of the pandemic right now is actually counterproductive. So we have to translate this to that. And the natural farming example Sir gave earlier is a beautiful example, because you are taking care of the ecology there, but your input costs are going down, your yields are going up, your nutrition levels are going up, and your nutrition level going up has to be linked to your health numbers as well, right? So if you are able to actually bridge this gap in a very mainstream way and make the mainstream care about the ecology, become part of the ecological solutions, I think that's where nirvana lies. And I think this was referred to earlier as well, when the government is the main custodian of a lot of these efforts, and we can really help change the conversation and the narrative. This is another big R&D problem. This is a very common representation of the structure relationship between the economy and ecology. It's not even proportional. The economy is a really, really minuscule percentage of the ecology, if you were to calculate it right. But the way we are trying to do it through whether it's carbon credits or PES or even a lot of the ESG efforts, is that we are actually trying to take a percentage of the economy and encapsulate the entire ecology represented as part of that. That is broken mathematics. That will never work. So what is the real relationship between these two things? Is the ecology like a large bank from which the economy is a small withdrawal? And how do we account for that? So I think this is pending R&D, and whether it's organizations working on the ground, whether it's organizations like ours, economists, the government itself, I think there's a lot of R&D to be done in that, and we need to figure this puzzle out, because otherwise we are completely ripping out the foundational layer of ecology. The economy will not survive that. And I think it was already said earlier that we have maybe 10 years for this. I would say 10 years is an optimistic time frame at this point of time. Yeah, so it's everybody's problem. I think coming back to what capacities we need to build and what teams we need to build, it goes back to these, in our view, it goes back to these two things. Teams, skill sets, platforms, tools that are addressing this problem in a multidimensional way and are playing enabler rather than problem solver, because otherwise the solution will collapse the moment the external problem solvers go away. If it's not, if it doesn't find a home in the institutions and markets in every bioregion, the solutions will actually collapse. So we are very happy to collaborate with anybody on this. We are actually looking to we're looking at collaboration as a major route to solve this problem. Of course, there's grants and investments available for people trying to solve these problems, but I think that's a smaller percentage. A lot of us coming together and figuring out how to mainstream these things is a bigger need right now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sisodia. We had a follow-up question
sure.
Related to capacity building.
Mm-hmm.
As we know about capacity building, that it's always important to deploy the correct type of training for specific interventions.
Mm-hmm.
But in these scenarios, how can we ensure that a systematic and a proper approach is followed and we are able to employ the correct trainings?
I like I said earlier, I think so we can solve it at the level of specific modules and specific skill sets. But I think the bigger alignment at this point of time is the messaging itself. It's people understanding that it's the directional alignment, and then the answers will emerge ground up in different places differently. It won't be a one size fits all solution for any of this.
Thank you so much for this insightful session.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Mr. Ilangu, is the head of order management, London Stock Exchange Group, Bangalore. He'll be providing us with insights on channeling employees in innovative ways for climate action. Over to you, Mr. Ilangu.
Good evening, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be part of this summit, and thanks, Kapil and the entire Satrys team for organizing one and also inviting the London Stock Exchange Group as one of the keynote speakers here. Before I speak about the employee participation in this, I just want to give a very brief about our group as a whole and how this all started, and then it can connect to what we are doing actually on ground in India. So the London Stock Exchange Group is a diversified financial markets, infrastructure, and data provider for our customers across the globe. We are a global business and a key part of the world's financial system. As such, we play an important role in contributing to economic stability as well as sustainable growth. It is a role that we perform with pride, and we take a lot of responsibilities, these responsibilities very seriously. And we are positioned at the heart of the capital markets, and we are very uniquely placed to drive long-term sustainable economic growth across the global economies. So we not only partner in the marketplace, but also we partner with our industry leaders to champion the role responsible businesses investors play in accelerating the transition to a low carbon and sustainable economy. As part of this, we have made a lot of commitments across the group level. One few things that I want to call out is like we recently joined the Race to Zero, and we're one of the first companies in the financial services sector to commit to a long-term science-based carbon reduction target aligned to the Paris Climate Agreement. And of course, they're related to that. There are other commitments like being carbon neutral, be powered by 100% renewable energy, and reduce annual carbon emission by 10%. So those are some of the key commitments that we have made for ourselves as a group across the globe. One of the key aspects of this is that our intent is to support and encourage our people to volunteer, to play active role in the communities we work, and particularly on the environment and climate change. So that's how the group commitment and the vision came into play. When we look at in India, this journey started several years back, and we have gone through several mergers and acquisition. So we were Reuters, Thomson Reuters, Refinitiv, and we are part of the LSEG group or the London Stock Exchange Group. And our approach always has been involving our employees. And we have about 6,000 employees in India. And they are very active, vocal supporter of these initiatives. And how did we create this? There are a few things. One, we wanted to be including them in the journey that we wanted to go through. And we invited a number of ideas and thought process how we wanted to support this as a whole. And the simple ideas like we don't want paper cups, we wanted to remove the plastic things, and we want renewable energy. So those are some of this very specific to the office premises, which came from employees, and we implemented those things, and it is also contributing to the overall the environment and the climate change initiative that we committed. The other key aspect is that how do you want to work with the communities in Karnataka particularly? One of the key aspects is that we work with very close NGO partners, and of course, Satrys is one of them, which we a couple of years back, we got to know about them and we partnered with them. And we wanted to be in a place where the rest of the corporates are not able to reach or are not finding time to reach. So our focus has been always the rural parts of Karnataka. And the kind of things that we have, one of the key things that we have is the volunteering hours and volunteering grant. So which means that our employees just come together in a group of 35, 40 people or 60 people, get onto a bus and go to the rural parts of Karnataka, work with our NGO partners in the community in certain projects. And then we actually literally in the community, we actually volunteer our time and effort and physical work or other ways to support them. And through this process, we're also able to generate some volunteer grant, and that's being used to give back to that particular community. And there are a number of projects, and the key projects, if you can share the slide, please. And those are some of the things that I wanted to sort of highlight where we have done in the last couple of years. And our journey first started with Satrys when we planted 10,000 trees in Bangalore in one of the places that's called Koramangala, where our almost 350 employees actually came on Saturday and Sunday, and throughout the day, we were involved in the plantation drive. And that was a big hit among our employees. And thereafter, we have made number of such initiatives. For example, even in the virtual environment last year, we ran some virtual race. Basically, you walk, and if you walk for 50 kilometers, you are able to plant 90 trees, right? And that's what some of the other projects that's on display is actually work in progress. The 2 lakhs saplings for mangrove project in Mangalore, and we have some 80,000 sampling plantation work in progress in and around Bangalore. And there are various other initiatives like this where we are using these funds and the volunteer hours that we are using to actually go and provide all of these things in the community. There are other opportunity for us to fund. One is the 2% CSR fund. Most of the companies are expected to spend. We have salary donation drive, and it is sort of compensated by equal amount by our LSEC Foundation. And then we also get money directly from our LSEC Foundation. So with using all of these funding, we are able to give back to the community and in the space. So, and we are very proud and we are very elated that we are able to make a difference in the space through our employee participation. Thank you. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ilango, for talking about the importance of volunteering amongst employees. Now, moving on to the last speaker for this segment, Ms. Archana Jain, who is a senior advisor for projects and program management at Dell, leading strategic communication for APJ Enterprise Support. She leads community engagement for Planet ERG and is one of the 3 core members who co-led the tree plantation drives at Dell. She's also involved in multiple employee resource groups as a part of leadership board and is passionate about giving back to the society. I welcome you.
Hello, everybody. I am Archana Jain. I work for Dell, and I co-lead our flagship program for Planet ERG that aims at million tree plantation in India. I am really excited to tell you all about the model of bringing employees together to plant 1 million trees, collaborating with farmers. The effort of Dell Technologies' social impact story is the perfect start for our conversation for a couple of reasons. First, we know that more than ever, the customers prefer to do business with companies whose value align with their own. In fact, a recent study from IDC states that 70% of organizations select partners who are committed to sustainability progress. You need to be confident that your partners also share those values. And second reason is I know you all have some social impact efforts of your own, and I'm hoping that our conversation will serve as inspiration for possible collaborations. So let's get started. At Dell, we create technologies that drive human progress. And the size of our company isn't the only thing that has grown since Michael Dell started it in his dorm room in 1984. As the business grew, so did his awareness of social issues, and the determination to use our now global footprint to make a significant, lasting difference. Social impact that promotes human progress starts from top down at Dell Technologies. And it isn't just a program, it's a part of who we are as a company and as 160,000 individuals worldwide. In 2019, we decided to take things up a level by establishing and working to achieve very specific and very ambitious goals in clearly defined period of time. We took everything we have learned from nearly 4 decades of driving technological innovation and focused those on the skills for answering one simple question: how can we, along with our customers, partners, and suppliers, have a profound and positive impact on society and the planet, especially within the next 10 years? Progress Made Real, a comprehensive roadmap for making the greatest social impact by 2030, is the result. It focuses on areas we believe are most important in creating a positive social impact, advancing sustainability, cultivating inclusion, and transforming lives by tackling society's most urgent issues. Underscoring all these efforts is a core commitment to ethics and data privacy, of course. And I'm excited to now show you our most ambitious plans, what we call our moonshot goals. So say trees, you're not alone in planning the next decade to make this world a better place. We are right there with you. These moonshot goals are developed to establish measurable progress and hold us accountable. These serve as a call to action for team members, partners, and customers to come together to achieve what might be beyond our limit if attempted alone. Advancing sustainability means thinking about environment in everything that we do. Diversity and inclusion are critical to business success, and our moonshot goal for cultivating inclusion, that is, by 2030, 50% of global workforce and 40% of our global people leaders will be those who identify as women. Within the US, 25% of our workforce and 50% of our people leaders will be those who identify as Black, African American, and Hispanic or Latino. Our moonshot goals are transforming lives to leverage our technology and size to advance health, education, and economic opportunity initiatives that will deliver enduring results for 1 billion people. Finally, as I said earlier, upholding ethics and privacy is the foundation of everything we do. So by 2030, we will fully automate our data control processes to make it easy for our customers to control their personal data. You must be thinking, we are here talking about bringing people together. Why am I even talking about moonshot goals? But this is the background story, what works the best for our people, because this segues directly into our people strategy and the part of inclusion, which means empowering our team members to contribute to a high performing company that wins customers, accelerates change, and drives human progress. This is at the center of all the employee resource groups we have at Dell. And one amongst those many employee resource group is Planet ERG, which has decided in collaboration with Say Trees and the farmers of India to plant 1 million trees across different locations in India. So let me tell you more about it. Planet ERG is creating a roadmap along with NGO partners for engaging every employee of Dell in India and to contribute to this effort through their volunteer efforts and community outreach program. This plan is executed yearly, largely during monsoons and in locations that are within the vicinity of our Dell facilities to enable participation from our employees. We will also, over time, plan for remote locations with the help of technology and say trees to plant trees where we can get scale and where the community gets most benefited. We plan to fund this program largely through the volunteering cause cards, and our people know about it. You know what is the result of it? They have all committed to this cause, and they come together, even in the virtual environment, regularly to continue to contribute through various green lifestyle changes efforts, donating medicinal plants, fruit tree saplings for the open community areas, wherever they are today. And you know, when I say wherever they are, work from anywhere model of Dell, especially during this pandemic time, has really made a huge difference in how we all are spread across various locations within India. So what we are doing is we are trying to fund this program, which will close to cost $2 million through our efforts, our hours that we spend doing the green activities, the new practices that we learn from various environmentalists in collaboration with Say Trees, and try and help 502 farmers in Anandpur, Orissa, Bangalore. And in past 2 years, we have provided them the base for their living through various plantation projects. The saplings were needed to be enable their livelihood, and we are also partnering with schools to ensure that our next generation remains focused on the green path. Amazingly, our employees have been the core of this ecosystem that we are developing. They have donated so far 1.3 crore rupees towards this noble cause and continue to support us. I am super glad that I shared the story of social impact at Dell Technologies, where progress is made real by the employees across ERGs and especially so at Planet ERG. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Archana Jain. Before moving on to the last segment of the summit, we'll be taking a short break.
You want a planet that has enough and plenty for future generations. So do we. As an NGO, we have planted trees on more than 4,000 acres of land across India. Like you and us, thousands of Indians are doing crucial work right now. But there is an urgent need for effective climate action by 2030. And there is a lot more to be done on this lonely and difficult journey, especially in a pandemic. You may be looking for resources, support, visibility, or data. This can be overwhelming because in this next deciding decade, we need to reverse the damage of the past 3 decades. We all need a boost, unity, community. Say Trees is proud to present India Earth Summit 10, a limited and focused annual event that will end in 2030 with clear and definitive goals for each year. It will bring together an India-wide community of thinkers, doers, and makers to showcase, learn from, support, and reward the best work from around the nation. We invite participants from the government, private sector, civil society, and citizens to unite at the India Earth Summit 10. You want a planet that has enough and plenty for future generations. So do we. As an NGO, we have planted trees on more than 4,000 acres of land across India. Like you and us, thousands of Indians are doing crucial work right now. But there is an urgent need for effective climate action by 2030. And there is a lot more to be done on this lonely and difficult journey, especially in a pandemic. You may be looking for resources, support, visibility, or data. This can be overwhelming because in this next deciding decade, we need to reverse the damage of the past 3 decades. We all need a boost, unity, community. Say Trees is proud to present India Earth Summit 10, a limited and focused annual event that will end in 2030 with clear and definitive goals for each year. It will bring together an India-wide community of thinkers, doers, and makers to showcase, learn from, support, and reward the best work from around the nation. We invite participants from the government, private sector, civil society, and citizens to unite at the India Earth Summit 10. You want a planet that has enough and plenty for future generations. So do we. As an NGO, we have planted trees on more than 4,000 acres of land across India. Like you and us, thousands of Indians are doing crucial work right now. But there is an urgent need for effective climate action by 2030. And there is a lot more to be done on this lonely and difficult journey, especially in a pandemic. You may be looking for resources, support, visibility, or data. This can be overwhelming because in this next deciding decade, we need to reverse the damage of the past 3 decades. We all need a boost, unity, community. Say Trees is proud to present India Earth Summit 10, a limited and focused annual event that will end in 2030 with clear and definitive goals for each year. It will bring together an India-wide community of thinkers, doers, and makers to showcase, learn from, support, and reward the best work from around the nation. We invite participants from the government, private sector, civil society, and citizens to unite at the India Earth Summit 10. You want a planet that has enough and plenty for future generations. So do we. As an NGO, we have planted trees on more than 4,000 acres of land across India. Like you and us, thousands of Indians are doing crucial work right now. But there is an urgent need for effective climate action by 2030. And there is a lot more to be done on this lonely and difficult journey, especially in a pandemic. You may be looking for resources, support, visibility, or data. This can be overwhelming because in this next deciding decade, we need to reverse the damage of the past 3 decades. We all need a boost, unity, community. Say Trees is proud to present India Earth Summit 10, a limited and focused annual event that will end in 2030 with clear and definitive goals for each year. It will bring together an India-wide community of thinkers, doers, and makers to showcase, learn from, support, and reward the best work from around the nation. We invite participants from the government, private sector, civil society, and citizens to unite at the India Earth Summit 10. You want a planet that has enough and plenty for future generations. So do we. As an NGO, we have planted trees on more than 4,000 acres of land across India. Like you and us, thousands of Indians are doing crucial work right now. But there is an urgent need for effective climate action by 2030. And there is a lot more to be done on this lonely and difficult journey, especially in a pandemic. You may be looking for resources, support, visibility, or data. This can be overwhelming because in this next deciding decade, we need to reverse the damage of the past 3 decades. We all need a boost, unity, community. Say Trees is proud to present India Earth Summit 10, a limited and focused annual event that will end in 2030 with clear and definitive goals for each year. It will bring together an India-wide community of thinkers, doers, and makers to showcase, learn from, support, and reward the best work from around the nation. We invite participants from the government, private sector, civil society, and citizens to unite at the India Earth Summit 10.
Welcome back, everyone. I would like to take this opportunity to introduce and hand over the screen to Mr. Kapil Sharma, the founder of Say Trees. As Durgesh already mentioned, Kapil has always been a green crusader. For him, the idea of Say Trees started in 2007 with planting 1 sapling. Then the subsequent year, it was 100 saplings. And now Say Trees is planting more than 2 lakh saplings per year with a total count of 10 lakh saplings till now. The programs at Say Trees have also diversified from tree plantation to water conservation, natural farming, sustainable agriculture, and ecosystem restoration, all under Kapil's guidance. Over to you, Kapil.
Thank you so much, Shubhankar. It's an honor to share screen with so many amazing people who are doing so much for Mother Earth. Allow me to share a personal story of 3 junctions in my life where I met remarkable people. Let me share with you 3 moments where my life could have been branched in any direction. But first, let me tell you about when I was a little boy from Chhattisgarh. I was surrounded by trees. I developed my love for these magical things at a very young age. Well, this is a lie. This is what you probably expect would be my story as the founder of Say Trees, an NGO that plant trees. However, this is not true. The truth is, where I grew up, I was surrounded by concrete jungle for many blocks. There were hardly any trees there. You could even say that I missed trees so much that when I finally met them, and this was in Bangalore, I fell in love with them. My true tree love came only as a young man in 2006 during my first job, and this is in Bangalore. I remember this one huge tree in Kormangala, Bangalore, with a trunk that was about 4 to 5 feet in diameter. It was a huge and beautiful tree, and it was being cut. I happened to pass by this whole location, and I was shocked to see that such a big tree was being cut down in broad daylight. I went and asked why they were cutting this tree down, and the people told me that it's being cut because they were not able to, or they were not happy with the tree, the leaves which are falling from this tree. They felt that it's a cumbersome job. I found that extremely troubling. How can people not see the benefit of these trees and only think about these fallen leaves which they see here? These trees help us live, and we treat them as a problem. I used to ride all across the city from home to work, and I noticed that more trees were being cut than being planted. I wanted to do something about it. I could not just see what is going around and regret later. This was my first big junction in my life as an environmentalist. It was a junction where I met these passionate environmentalists within myself. On one hand, I could have chosen to continue with my job as is, and on the other hand, I could have done something about all the loss in the tree cover, which I was witnessing around me. I chose the second option. So I took up the hugely cumbersome task and went to the local municipality office to see what I can do as a citizen. I never forget the face of the government official then. He asked me if I'm there to get a permission to bring a tree down. I told him that actually I came to ask permission to plant trees and not bring down a tree. I'll never forget his face. He was just stunned. Hardly anyone came to ask permission to plant trees those times. And I was lucky to get all his support. Then came the time I heard about a forest officer who was willing to plant about 100 saplings around the lake in Bangalore. He had all the expertise, but did not have the funding at that time. And the time was critical too, because we have to plant most of the saplings during the start of the monsoon. So I went and raised funds from my community, and we planted, we completed the plantation of these saplings. These saplings have become trees now next to this amazing lake in Bangalore. Soon after, I did a round of fundraising in my office for a plantation drive near my office. This is in, again, Outer Ring Road, Bangalore. I remember the joke my HR manager made that we will not be able to raise even 25,000 rupees for this plantation drive. And we proved her wrong, and we ended up raising about 2.5 lakh rupees instead. These saplings which we planted back in 2008 are now trees in the Outer Ring Road, Bangalore. I remember the time when I used to, after my office hours, I used to go and water these saplings with help of a water tanker, which we used to get. So I used to literally carry these pipes and water these saplings on the Outer Ring Road, main road, after my office hours. So this kind of thing went on for over 6 years, from 2008 to 2014. I was trying to do whatever I can on weekends, meeting like-minded people, bringing them along. We were taking care of the saplings we have planted, and we are planting as many new saplings as we can. By now, I had met a lot of supporters and planted about thousands of trees as a weekend hobby. I was getting only Saturdays and Sundays because Monday to Friday was my office work. I came to realize that there were many people who were willing to fund the right energy and the right ideas. And however, I was just going to fly away now. This was my second big junction in my life as an environmentalist. It was a junction when I met the rest of SATRE's team, and impact could scale 100-fold. I knew that we had to scale up, and we had to do whatever it takes to make that happen. We could not just continue as volunteers doing a weekend hobby. We had to grow immensely. It was a deep-rooted feeling within all of us to increase our skills, teams, network, and impact. And so that day in October 2014, on one hand, I could have just flown away to my new job in the US, but I did not want to leave everything behind, something which I have given so much of effort for so many years, and I was seeing the change. I was seeing saplings being converted into trees. I was seeing people coming out and, supporting me in whatever I was doing. I wanted to make sure that what I started continues, because we are already seeing the change in the city. I'm grateful that I chose to continue that journey and got our first teammate, fearful that I may not even be able to pay his salary. But it's a risk that had to be taken. That's when SATRE's got its first teammate. And I can also say that SateTrees went international because I was in US and then the first teammate was in Bangalore taking care of everything there. Today, SateTrees is about 40 passionate souls, and together we have gone on to plant. Yeah, we have gone on to plant about 9 to 10 lakh saplings in 9 states in the country. Many, I would say that what I started back in 2007 with one sapling being planted in Bangalore, and now we are like planting lakhs of saplings in all most of the states where we feel a change can be brought, right? And many of these planting drives have been with many of you, our volunteers and our donors. Thank you so much for being with us. From 1 person till 2014 to about 40 people now, SateTrees has scaled up multifolds where each of these people are doing their best to fight against climate change. This year, we are at a third big junction in this journey, where we all meet together. Ahead of us, we have an immense challenge. Currently, humans are emitting about 50 billion tons of carbon dioxide every year. Sometimes people don't understand how big a number that is. Let me put this into perspective. If 1 million is 11 days, then 50 million will be 550 days, and 50 billion is 1600 years. So I hope you get how much 50 billion tons of carbon is, and we are doing this on an annual basis. We are emitting this much carbon on an annual basis. Now it's critical for all of us to hold the temperature change to 1.5 degrees, because 2 degrees, the impact is exponentially different. Just a difference of 0.5 degrees makes a big change. Let's talk about what 0.5 degrees difference does to the planet. According to the IPCC special report on global warming, at 1.5 degrees, we have a 100% increase in flood risk, but at 2 degrees, it becomes 170% increase in flood risk. So we change from 100% to 170%. At 1.5 degrees, we have a 9% of the world population exposed to extreme heat. Whereas, and this is in every 20 years, whereas at 2 degrees, 28% of population will be exposed to extreme heat in every 20 years. So again, we see a sharp rise from 9% to 28%. At 1.5 degrees, the Arctic will lose all ice once in every 100 years. Whereas in 2 degrees, the Arctic will lose all its ice once in every 10 years. And we know what will happen when we lose all of these ice at very regular or a frequent interval. According to the UN Climate Change Secretariat, at 1.5 degrees, we will have 2 months of average length of drought, just 2 months, which is itself is high, but 2 months. But at 2 degrees, 4 months, and at 3 degrees, we have 10 months of drought. So basically, if we don't stop the temperature increase by 2030, it will be very difficult to stop it at 2 degrees, and then even more difficult to stop it at 3 degrees. And you can see, if it goes to 3 degrees, which will be like decades from now, but there will be 10 months of drought. And this is something we don't want even us to see, or even our kids and the next generation to see these situations, these harsh situations. At 1.5 degrees, we will have 41% increase in area burned by wildfires, whereas at 2 degrees, it will be 62% increase, and at 3 degrees, it will be 97% increase in area burned by wildfire. And this is huge. We are talking about planting more saplings and increasing the tree cover, but if we don't control the temperature increase, the tree cover will be increasing at an even faster rate. At all costs, we must all come together to limit the temperature change to 1.5 degrees. And I always say that we need diverse solution for the same. We have to come all together. We need to bring in meaningful collaborations and try to achieve, or try to win this fight against climate change. Now, there are two main parts to this solution. To us, to use the now famous analogy, if we see a tap filling a bucket that is overflowing, what do? We need to do two things. One is we need to close the tap, and the second is that we need to clean up the spill. Closing the tap quite simply means to reduce the carbon emission, cleaning up the spills, and the cleaning up the spills means carbon removal. So when you want to close the tap, it means reduce the carbon emission, and when you want to clean it up, means we have to remove the carbon. Now, closing the tap includes solutions like sustainable farming practices, solar lighting, innovative building techniques and materials, renewable energy, electric vehicles, and many of like these, and which can help us is reducing the burden of carbon and other fossil fuels. And cleaning up the mess includes solutions like planting trees. And when I say cleaning means we want to remove the carbon. So we have to plant trees, we have to plant mangroves, recycling, agroforestry, microbial and technology-based carbon capture. Just like in 2010, when I felt the need to scale up because I felt it's not enough, I did not want to regret 10 years later that I could not see Bangalore facing extreme weather conditions. I wanted to scale up. I wanted to make sure that a lot needs to be done. Otherwise, I'll be regretting 10 years later. Today, I feel the same need to expand what I have done 100-fold, because now the problems have become even bigger as compared to what they were in 2006, 2007. In the past few years, we have not just planted lakhs of trees. We have also revived wells. We have planted saplings around 29 lakes in Bangalore. We have added water holding capacity of about more than 1 billion liters in Bangalore alone. We have installed street lamps in villages, and these are solar powered street lamps. We have empowered many hundreds of farmers through our agroforestry programs. Having done this much in such a small span of time with such a small team, I believe that we can do a lot more if we collaborate with the right partners. I always believe that, more the merrier. I believe that if there is meaningful collaborations, we can win this fight against the climate change. We believe that we can strategically address the problem at hand and help hold the temperature change down to 1.5 degrees. SageTrees is geared up with the experience, the team, and the network to take up this challenge. We have identified small projects and research studies that we believe require more support. And these are the areas which I feel that can bring big difference in next 10 years. I feel elated to announce that as of today on India Earth Summit 10, we are formally launching a grant that we are drawing from our own corpus. With this grant, we'll be awarding deserving researching scientists, startups, citizen groups, and other deserving people in the climate action space every year. Very few people know about this, but we have given grants over past 3 years. We have funded a research into the impact of biodiversity by the Miyawaki forests. We have funded, a small program at the IISc Bangalore for aerial seeding. We have also funded a college into making bricks from the lake sludge. And all of these things were happening when we were facing some problems in one or the other project we were working on. So I felt that we have to fund researches around them. It was very important, and we did that. And I'm very happy that we took this step. So, and we are very happy to have funded these teams, and we look forward to fueling similar work going forward. We invite our partners to join us in funding such ventures in future. This year, the theme of the grant will be direct air capture, or DAC. I hope that everyone who is doing or willing to do a research on DAC to remove carbon from the air to reach out to us. I'll be honored to support the idea and scale it up as we go. There is a lot of carbon which needs to be removed from air around us while we try to reduce our emissions. So we have to work on removing, as well as I said, as I gave the analogy, that we have to remove along with, while we reduce, we have to remove the existing carbon as well. Research has always been ignored in India, and I wish to change the same. Let me tell you a fact about a small startup in India. 2 young chemists at the Indian Institute of Technology invented a solution to remove carbon in air. Such an amazing thing. But they failed to find an Indian finance initially. Nobody was ready to finance them. And this is like 6 to 8 years back. Later on, they were welcomed by the UK government, which offered grants and the special entrepreneur status to them. And the startup has already removed about 8 lakhs metric ton of carbon so far. So you can see, somebody had the idea, but they were not getting these funds, they were not getting these grants to take their idea live. They were lucky to get the support, and now they have removed about 8 lakh metric tons of carbon so far. So now we can imagine if there are many more startups like this who are just working on their invention, we can achieve huge results. And don't we think this is amazing, right? This is so amazing that young people are bringing up ideas, and when they get proper support, we can actually find solution to the biggest problem which we are facing. We need more such startups in India to work on solving the biggest problem we all are facing. And being a technical guy, I'm geared up to support technology to help us in our fight against climate change. Whether it is a grant or planting trees or rallying citizen and organization for a large-scale action, it would be amazing if more like-minded people join us against this fight in this fight against climate change. In closing, I would like to remind all of us that all this needs to be done for us and for generation to come. Nature neither forgets nor forgives. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being with us. We now move on to our next segment where SATREES would like to recognize efforts of some of its consistent supporters. I will now present the certificate of recognition. So I would like to thank CGI for their support and for believing in us and for supporting this idea that we need to do a lot in next 10 years to achieve whatever goals we have set. I would like to thank Fidelity Business Services India Private Limited for their support in creating urban forests. The support which they have been giving only has been increasing every year. They have been planting more and more sapling in urban spaces in every passing year, and which is huge. And we can see the difference, and we saw that in the slide which was being shared. I would like to thank Planet ERG Dell Technologies for initiating this project of planting 1 lakh saplings. And we are very happy that these saplings are being planted with farmers. We are not only increasing the green cover region, but we are also giving hope to these farmers to have a parallel income. And this is so amazing. Dell is bringing all of their volunteers together to achieve this target of 1 million saplings. And I'm sure we'll be very soon be able to achieve this. And this is not only, helping the farmers and getting things done, but this is also setting an example for other corporates to follow. I would like to thank London Stock Exchange Group, Bangalore, for their support and for their vision for till 2030. It has been amazing interaction with them. And I truly believe that together we'll be able to achieve a lot in next 10 years. I would like to thank LTI, Larsen & Toubro Infotech, for their continuous support from many years now. And I also appreciate them for their long-term plan. And I'm very happy to, partner with L&T to help them achieve their targets by 2030. With this, I would like to bring an end to this amazing, conference, and special thanks to all the people who joined together. Thank you so much. SATREES.